Hello everyone, thank you for joining us at this news hour on Equinoxe television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital Douala. At least 5 government workers abducted in the Indian division, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Will have details and confirmation from the senior divisional officer of the Indian division in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe television, and we'll also talk about the Day of the African Child. While Africa observes the day consecrated to its children, some parents here in Cameroon's economic capital Douala lamenting over the tragic death of one of their children, a 9-year-old girl who fell off from the 3rd floor of a story building and died in school. Protect every child from violence, exploitation, neglect, and abuse, a priority of the Cameroon government. This is the theme of this year's edition of the African Child's Day, being observed across the continent. At the moment, government is saying that the protection of children from violence, exploitation, neglect, and abuse is its priority. A child falls off from the 3rd floor of a story building in her school and dies on the spot. The incident occurred here in Cameroon's economic capital Douala's Manjikan Gebre has more.
The father of 9-year-old Sanjong in pains. Her daughter fell off from the 3rd floor of her school Tuesday after a friend of hers mistakenly pushed her. I accompanied my kids to school on Tuesday only for them to call me. At 1:30 p.m. that the child had an accident on campus. I was asked to come to Lakentini Hospital at the emergency unit. That was the last time I saw my kids.
Quand je sors de l'urgence, les mamans qui ont vu la scène viennent m'arrêter, me demander d'être fort.
At the compound of Sanjok this Wednesday, the management of the primary school and some sympathizers came to console the family that was in pains. Approached by Equinoxe television reporters, the headmaster refused talking, but sources within the primary school say parents of pupils have always asked school authorities to reinforce the fence placed at the balcony of the institution. Unfortunately, the cry of the parents was not heard. The lifeless body of 9-year-old Sanjong is at the Lakentini mortuary pending burial arrangement.
And many children in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon have died. Some are suffering, living in very deplorable and traumatic situations as a result of the close to 5-year-long armed conflict in the northwest region of the country, with the children suffering the consequences with their parents, some escaping in bushes, some getting sounds of gunshots every day, seeing houses burnt down and persons killed, leaving them with trauma, a situation affecting their lives, and many of them have been deprived of education because of the armed conflict going on in those two regions for close to 5 years today. And Davidson Maimo in Limbe talked to the divisional delegate of the Ministry of Social Affairs for the Fako division, and this is what she told us.
Crisis we have in the northwest and southwest region has had a great impact in the welfare of children. It has actually changed the behavior of children. It has actually affected children, especially as their rights are concerned, because there is violence every day, there's exploitation every day, there's neglect every day, there is abuse every day, and the rate is actually increasing. It is increasing because the adults are affected, and then the children consequently are affected by what the adults experience. Families do not have resources to feed their children. Children will be deprived of their right to nutrition. If children are not going to school, they'll be deprived of their right to education. If their health care is not well taken care of, they'll be deprived of that right too. It is so frustrating that some children have had the tendency of developing some defense mechanism. Defense mechanism in the sense that they want to fight for themselves, they want to see how they can be able to make things better by themselves. And with that anger, with that trauma in children, it affects the way they also behave towards one another and towards the adults who are supposed to be protected. We know that the future of our country or the future of the world relies on the kind of children we bring up today. So no one should feel left out with protecting children.
That is the situation over there in the southwest and northwest regions of the country, where an armed conflict has been raging for close to 5 years today. And latest information streaming into our newsroom indicates that at least 5 government workers have been picked up by unidentified individuals said to be non-state armed group fighters in the Indian division, and we'll be coming back to that in greater details in a short while with our correspondent in the southwest region, Derek Jato. Time for us to talk more about African children, and coming up innocent as it takes a look at efforts being made to empower children in order to turn down the situation of violations of their rights. Details in this report.
On the International Day of the African Child, June 16, 2021, some children in Douala assimilate skills in craft work that will enable them become financially independent so as to sustain their livelihood. Gathered around the Association of Devoted Women for Cameroon Development, these children for several days got trained in the production of bracelets and necklaces using beads, fabrication of shoes and handbags with African fabric, cake baking and so on.
On Monday, we learned how to arrange shoes with African dresses, and I tried to do it myself too. We learned how to make bags with African dresses. I learned how to make cakes. We started the Children African Day Friday 12th of July 2021. On that day, we did sport, played football and handball, and it was very good. I feel glad to participate at that activity.
According to facilitators, this training will help occupy the children during the third-term holiday and for them to become dynamic entrepreneurs in the future.
Ça évitera beaucoup de faire aux enfants de faire des loisirs qui ne leur rapporteront pas.
Such a training will as well prevent them from being victims of violence of all sorts in a society where crimes like rape, torture, rituals and many others prevail.
Déjà au sein d'AFEDEC, nous travaillons avec les femmes et autour de nous, nous avons des femmes qui ont des enfants chaque fois victimes sur ces problématiques.
Theme chosen by Cameroon to commemorate this International Day of the African Child is Protect Every Child Against Violence, Exploitation, Negligence and Abuse, a priority to the government of Cameroon.
And latest information streaming into our studio concerning government workers abducted or kidnapped in the Indian Division Southwest region of Cameroon indicate that there are about 6 of them who have been picked up and taken into the bush by unidentified individuals. Derek Jato files in details from Boya.
It is now confirmed that 6 divisional delegates and the chief of divisional office working in Indian Division were abducted and taken into the forest For one Lawrence, the senior divisional officer for Ndian Division, confirmed to Equinoxe Television that the divisional delegate of land tenure, the divisional delegate of housing and urban development, the divisional delegate of water and energy, the divisional delegate of small and medium-sized enterprises, the divisional delegate of economic planning and regional development, and the chief of divisional service of surveys were abducted about 9 a.m. Tuesday, June 15, 2021 at Masore Balwe in the Kondo Titi subdivision, a village near Mundemba, and taken into the forest of a Kondo Titi subdivision. As at now, the administration of Ndian Division has revealed that the abductors have identified themselves as separatist fighters, and the person leading the team is known as Ten Kobo, a youth that hails from Bikura in the Kondo Titi subdivision. The senior divisional officer for Ndian Division has also said that he is in communication with the abducted divisional delegate, and the information coming in is that they are being held in two separate camps, and the separatist fighters are demanding 28 million in one camp and over 32 million in another. These state workers now abducted were on a land demarcation mission for Inyo, and they were abducted at the site in Masore Balwe in the Kondo Titi subdivision, Ndian Division of the Southwest region of Cameroon.
And within the framework of consequences of the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon, several inhabitants of Kumba and Boya, notably in the Fako, in the Meme and Fako divisions, respectively, southwest region of the country, have been in the dark because of inadequate electric energy supply being attributed to the shooting or the gun battle between non-state armed group fighters and security and defense forces in Muya, in the Boya. And away from this, inadequate electric energy supply is a general problem everywhere in the Republic of Cameroon, and some civil society leaders were examining this issue today here in Douala. Details with Charles Ekome. We'll be coming back to that report in a short while. Time for us to proceed to Bamenda in the northwest region of the Republic of the country, and in a bid to prevent and fight against the spread of coronavirus in the Bamenda 3 subdivision. The mayor, Fongu Cletus, has assembled his people grouped in different social and professional associations or unions to reiterate the need to respect all barrier measures in order to stem the spread of the virus. After emphasizing at the Bamenda 3 Council premises in Quen this Wednesday for all to adhere to hand washing with soap and clean water, use of hydroalcoholic gel, or better still hand sanitizers, and of course the wearing of face masks in public places. The mayor, Fongo Cletus, matched words with actions by giving out some of the hand sanitizers and face masks to the people to help them in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, and he pleaded on the population of Bamenda 3 to take the COVID-19 pandemic seriously, while indicating that people continue to die due to negligence. He indicated that people are still dying because of negligence. Now take a listen to the mayor and some of the inhabitants of Bamenda 3.
I think today we are here to add our voice to that of the government to continue to sensitize the public on the fight against COVID-19. As you know, COVID-19 is still very much around, and we think that we as local authorities, we should take initiatives that will add to the government voice so that this pandemic should disappear in our community once and for all.
I want to thank the Lord Mayor for this gesture, for giving us COVID-19 kits. It will really help persons with disability in the community to also fight COVID-19 because it's a challenge for us too, because we have been neglected during this time of COVID-19. And they will get the information in the right way because we'll use the things to teach them practically how to wash their hands and use sanitizers to sanitize their crutches, their wheelchairs, and as they go around so that they should be prevented from COVID-19. I want to thank the Lord Mayor for his effort, and I want to say together we'll be collectively breaking a holy ground of persons with disability in the Bamenda 3 municipalities. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
By riders of Bamenda 3, I really appreciate the effort of our Lord Mayor, who have also invited us this time around to come and collect some materials of the COVID-19. We are really pleased, and we hope with this one, the pandemic issue will be reduced from this our municipality.
Poor electric energy supply, a major problem affecting different parts, almost all parts of the Republic of Cameroon, with areas where inhabitants have never had electric energy supply, and in the big cities as well as in the hinterlands, recurrent power failure is a serious problem affecting life. And in the two Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon, the problem has been further complicated and worsened by the crisis. This is the situation of Kumba and some areas in the Boya, where some electricity supply officials have attributed the past days in darkness or the past days without electricity to the recent gun battle between non-state armed group fighters and security and defense forces in Boya. Details with Charles Ekome.
In the restive southwest region has been without electricity for several days now.
I be a business person. Being a manager of a microfinance, I think I need lights like the whole day 247. I get machines and for office where I think say those machines are supposed to run, because even at every hour I work, even from home, I work, I go through my machines and ensure things can go well. Just imagine say people they suffer some then they for lights, where they need lights for do even basic small things with it. I can tell you for a fact, say now so as we talk, compound where they stay, I get woman there they do Yahoo. As we talk, those Yahoo they don't go bad.
An official of the electricity production company attributes the situation to the recent gun battle between non-state armed group fighters and security and defense forces in Munyabuya.
During shooting, we be there for Munya, all we know. The reason that way when they will not get lights through my 15 to Muyuka, so when they be there for go walk. So on Monday, the team they go down there, they meet up again the very situation of shooting, they come back. So now really yesterday we go down and then so now they try all your best, and they try all your best for say we supply light.
Apart from security challenges at the origin of power failure, inadequate electric supply is a problem affecting almost all parts of the country, from big cities to the hinterlands. Civil society leaders meeting in Douala are diagnosing the problem.
Tell INEO directly that there is a risk that people may stand up for their rights because they are not using electricity as they pay. And good enough, we have response. But bad enough, those response did not satisfy us, because today we are now to look the way forward, to see how we can meet them for a plan and action to end this, I can say, violence against population, because it's very difficult. Today we know that we don't have light every day and we are paying for it.
Chantal Kambiwa, one of the civil society leaders, says this growing problem might lead to a rising insecurity in the country, and the need for a rapid solution is the only way to prevent chaos.
Sometimes you don't use the electricity, but I have bills. And when you go to Osonel, they say, pay and we will see after. And we want to end all of that. Today, the problem of Sonel is one of the major problems in not only in the littoral, but in Cameroon. And we want to end with this situation by going to meet INEO. So the following plan of action is to meet them physically as they respond to our letter, to have a concrete plan of action.
The platform of civil society leaders in the littoral region has recently highlighted hate speech, tribalism, and now electricity problems, which they believe must be controlled before the situation becomes chaotic.
That's it for the first part of this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us in Talking Point today. 47 years after the Soweto massacre in South Africa, June 16, 1976, and 30 years following that incident after the United Nations or the African Union instituted June 16 as Day of the African Child. We are taking a look at the continuous violation of the rights of children in many African countries today, the impact of war, crisis, violence on children, the phenomenon of child soldier and child labor in many African countries, and we'll also take a look at how to enhance efforts to protect every child from violence, exploitation, neglect, and abuse. The Cameroon government says this is a priority. Meet our guest joining us from Mali, Mirabel Sonki Ewane. She's a civil society leader and founder of the Network for Solidarity and Hope, and of course empowerment. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila, and a wonderful day of the African child to you and to all children.
A wonderful day, even though it is coming at a point in time when many children are in very difficult conditions with their rights being violated in wars, crisis, violence in many African countries, and precisely in Mali, where you are, a country that has been suffering from a crisis, putting many children at risk, many children dying, many of them becoming child soldiers. What's the situation there?
Mali, just like any African country, is faced with poverty and violence in all its forms. You know, I will not speak about the depictable situation of the child soldier phenomenon, which became prominent in international humanitarian and human rights field with the release of the study on the impact of armed conflicts on children in 1996, stating that over 300,000 children were fighting 31 conflicts around the globe. So you can imagine, I can tell you about the statistics. I can't really give you a statistics of the number, but you can imagine that in 1996 you had 300,000 children. Today you have the case. We're talking of Mali. Mali, I think Mali is a little bit calm now, with with the UN struggling to to come in terms with the peace agreements and things like that. Let's talk about Cameroon. Cameroon today, we have three major humanitarian issues. The far north region, the north and southwest regions of Cameroon that are plagued by this crisis. And with the poverty, more and more children are being recruited as child soldiers. I can tell you for free, it's not an easy situation. The first child soldier I met was in 2005 when I was working in Liberia. That child was taken in by an armed group when he was about 3 years, and he grew up as a child soldier. That's it. Thank God that at least with the how do you call it, with the disarmament rehabilitation processes, this boy was able to, but he's still living with the trauma of having killed people, having eaten human flesh while he was a child soldier in Liberia. Same thing in Sierra Leone. I met a couple of child soldiers. You know, it's not an easy phenomenon. Today, we're talking about other countries. I prayed when I went to these countries that it should never, ever happen in my country. But I'm appalled by the situation that is happening in the far north regions of Cameroon, the English-speaking country, the English-speaking regions in Cameroon too. You have so many of them. You see them being, portrayed on social media. Some would take challenges, you know, like, I'm going to revenge my father, I am going to, this is the phenomenon it's taking, you know, like, where there is conflict and poverty, we are sure to have children there. So the only way to avoid this phenomenon is to establish rules and follow the rules that are put in place to protect these children.
Of course, we're going to talk a little more about how to enhance the protection of children from violence, from exploitation, from abuse, and so on a little later. But talking about Cameroon, for example, there are thousands of children today who are affected by the security crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, and also in the far north region of the country. Many of the children going through very difficult situations wherein they are hearing gunshots every now and then, and seeing houses being burnt down, some of them seeing people being killed, and so on. And with all these things happening, the children are practically caught in the crossfire, caught in a very difficult situation, just like their parents.
Exactly. As we say, I want to tell you, for example, being poor already, it's a cost to become a child soldier, because you're easily manipulated. These warring factions who promise you everything, you eating in their camp. Meanwhile, you could not have a decent meal in your house. So why don't you join them? Displacement too, it's another factor. You have some children who are separated from families or living in conflict zones, making them vulnerable to being recruited. So what do you expect? What do you expect from children, for example? This crisis, for example, a shooting incident is taking place. I, as a parent, am in the farm. My kids are at home. The next thing I do is seek refuge somewhere. I need to flee. Sometimes you have some people walking from one village to the other. I remember in my village in 2019, where there was a shooting and whatsoever, you had people who moved from farm to Bafmed before realizing that they had left their children. This is it's real. This is something that is real, and it's happening today. And it has been happening for the past since 2016, since the outbreak of the Anglophone crisis. I can't really talk about that of the far north regions. And you can talk about it with the numbers of displaced people. You know, like the spillover of this crisis is, you know, like you can see it in Bafoussam, in Douala, in like Chang and everything like that. It's appalling, the number of children who are walking stranded in the street. You see some today even hawking, who are hawking, not only selling small goods, some of them are even sexually exploited. These are the spillovers of this crisis in the regions of Cameroon.
Many of them are also refugees in neighboring Nigeria. Now, I want us to talk about the impact of the traumatic situations in which children find themselves today in some of those areas where there are crises, not only in Cameroon but in other African countries, in Chad, in the Central African Republic, in other African countries where there are conflicts going on. The impact on the children is far-reaching. I listened to somebody recently who went through very difficult circumstances at the age of 10, telling his story, notably in Rwanda with the Rwandan genocide. And it was quite pathetic to hear how he was affected negatively by what he experienced, the gun battle, the gunshots, the killing of persons right in front of him, destruction of properties, and those images remained graven in his mind, and he grew up with that.
Yeah, I told you about meeting somebody. He was an adult when I met him in 2005 in Liberia. He was a child soldier. The Liberian Civil War started sometimes around 89. He told me he was about 3 years and he was abandoned by his parents. That's how they picked him up, took him to this group, and that's where he grew up until around 2003-4, where he started his rehabilitation. In 2005, he was lost. I was writing a book. I already did I drafted something about meeting a child soldier. Incidentally, I lost this laptop, but I have some vivid images, that is description, which he gave me of what happened while he was in the camp. He told me, "Ma, I killed people." And I'm like, "At your young age?" He's like, "Yeah, I was drugged." This guy is lost. We're talking of 16 years ago. I was having this conversation with him 16 years ago. So you can imagine how old he was. I think he was about 20. So he's 36 years today, but I'm sure he's still lost. I haven't been in touch with him all this while to know how he's faring. But he has been going through therapy. He has been going through therapy to be able, because these are some of the instances you don't forget. You learn to live with. The effects are the effects is just like the effects of trauma. How do you handle trauma? You only learn to live with it. So for him, it's like that. So sometimes it's like, I got to Cameroon once, and I was in Bamenda, and the kids were telling me, "Oh, mommy, when you hear pam is the amber. If you hear pam 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 is the La République, is the La République." So it was just so funny. It was just so funny how you could get children as young as 5 having how do you say it, that vivid description of the sounds of gun. It's coming from, they tell you this one is an amber shot, this one is from the La République, the way they call it is just so funny. How are these children? Because it's like, it's too much for me as an adult. Yeah, where I work, we've experienced like gunshots, explosive and things like that. I know sometimes the effects it has on me, and I'm imagining the effect it will have on kids. It's a long-term something, and we don't have the mechanism in place for them to live with this trauma. Because those who ran away and are in Nigeria, they are in the camp. They're in the camps. Those who are in Bafoussam, in Chang, in Douala, I don't see them being followed up by psychotherapists or by psychologists, because as we all know, it is not, it is not given for free. Trauma is something that is, to live with your trauma, you need to go through psychotherapy. So it's a big problem that the future generation is going to have to deal with.
And the wounds are often very difficult to heal, and could transform some people into beasts, could transform them into to become people that they were not before, and they become somehow aggressive thoughts people and so on.
Yeah, I think I just want to, for me, I want to say something. The African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which was adopted in 1990, on the right and status of children, was ratified by Cameroon in 1997. I don't know whether you know that if you did your homework. I know in Cameroon we have a child protection platform, which to me, it's been long. We're talking of 1997. Up to today, we don't have how do you call it? A child protection policy. We don't have it. That is why today, even we don't have a child protection policy. We don't even have a shelter where children can be kept. We understand fully well they're not resources, but you see people embezzling resources from here and there. Meanwhile, the resources could be transferred to some of these things. How do you protect a child when there's no clear-cut, policy guiding the protection of a child? There's still a long way to go. We are 24 years behind schedule. We ratified this convention, but we've not put anything in place to protect these children. That is what we're suffering today. We have children who are sexually abused in their homes, but we don't know where to put them because we don't have shelters. It's something you have to look for, orphanages and things like that. The orphanages do not receive subventions. It's support from friends and people we know. So it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task already, because you cannot save a child when there's no clear-cut guidelines on how to protect this child.
And today the African continent is looking at 30 years after the adoption of that charter, accelerated the implementation of Agenda 2040 for an African hit or an African fit for children. Now, when you look at this economic situation, the socio-economic situation of African countries today, and the issue of child exploitation, child labor that seem to be increasing in many African countries, how can this be handled?
How can this be? That's why I talk about the child protection policies. It's very important we have it. And if there's a child protection policy in any country, you need to have shelters that will back you up. Because if the parents breach the policies, what do you do? How do you handle this situation? You don't have shelters. I was listening to a talk today where one worker from women protection, she's talking about they are understaffed. The problem is not having staff. The problem is having the structures in place. We need to increase awareness of parents to prevent all these abuses. Today in Cameroon, as we speak, there's a girl child or two who are getting married today under the age of 18. Cameroon has ratified this charter, so it means that a child in this charter is any person under the age of 18. So in our constitution, they say a girl can get married with parental authority. That's why some parents give their kids, especially, I don't want to call the communities because I don't want to ostracize them or put them under stigma, but we need to go to these communities where their children are married at the age of 13 or so, because they say they've already started having their periods. No, we can't expose our children, because I think we have to take that responsibility, you and me. What are we doing to enhance child protection in our society? We are failing. We are failing because we don't speak up. My neighbor is getting her daughter married who's below 16 years, and I am there. I come and sit and I pretend I'm happy for them, but why don't I speak up when I see this? I know that this is wrong. Okay, let's imagine another way about it. So let's go raising awareness so that we can prevent all these abuses. I will tell you something. I don't buy stuff from kids who are hawking. I don't buy stuff because I tell them, go tell your mother to come with her stuff. I willingly buy it. But the child who is in the street selling, I tell them no, that is child labor, because I have that conversation with you. I ask you, for example, where is your mom? Oh, my mom is at home or whatsoever. The other day I had one that was in Yaoundé. They came to pick trash, and I had this conversation with them. And I asked them, what are you doing? They said it's their mommy who sent them to walk around and do. Yeah, I understand sometimes he's trying to empower them, but you don't expose them that way, because imagine they were girls. What somebody will pull them inside and commit, commit some, how do you say it? Rape, let me call it, some abuse. We know the case of the girl in Marché Bonamusadi, who the mother had put in the streets to sell, and this man sexually abused this child. We as parents and we as the community members, we have to take responsibility, because we are failing our children, just as the South African parents failed their children in 1976, so they had to go out and fight for their rights. We as parents, we have to stand up and fight for the rights of our children.
All right. The difficult thing here, we're rounding up, is the fact that some of those children will tell you it is from what they bring back from the hawking and all whatnot that some of them are able to go to school, their fees are paid, and things like that. They're able to eat in the house because of the extremely difficult situation in which they find themselves, poverty and all that.
I agree fully well, but you as the mother, why don't you do it? You as the father, why don't you do it?
Some of them are assisting their parents.
If you are assisting and then you sit next to your parent, I will understand. But you're not going around the market, because you're exposing the child to a lot. You're exposing the children. You, the child, you are exposed to a lot of ills in our society. That's why I'm talking about the case of a child who was raped in Bonamusadi. We're talking a couple of weeks ago. It was in Babaju, in the West region, where a gendarme sexually violated a child who went to pick up the money that the mother had sent, had sold fish to a gendarme, who took the plate to his brigade to eat, and the child went to collect the plate, and this man committed what he did. If the mother had gone by herself, you think this man would have raped her? No. But the children are so vulnerable that anything can happen to them. So we have to take all the requisite actions to protect our children. I will not send my child to go hawking for me because I need to feed. No, they didn't ask to come. They didn't ask you to birth them. It is your responsibility as a parent to take care of your children. It is your responsibility. We even go as far as seeing cases where when the child is even abuse, the child comes back to the house and tell you, the mother or the father, what action do you take? You just sweep it under the table for fear of stigma.
All right, now we wrap up with this one. Thousands of children deprived of education in the northwest, southwest, in the far north regions of the country. What can be done about that as a matter of urgency?
As a matter of urgency, I think we need to really sit on the table. If it means even going to this, to the English regions or the far north regions and talking with these warring factions and telling them that there is a need, because some of them are not even educated. There's a need for as they say in French, alphabetisation. There's a need for that they should learn to read and write. So tomorrow, at least, they can, they can choose to go to evening school and meet up with some of the challenges of the world. Be able to write O levels, BPC, or things like that. It's not easy. I'll tell you, it is not easy. My village is in a remote place. School have stopped since 2017. I don't even remember. Now parents are sending their kids out of the place. And when I talk with them, I've not been to a village since 2017, but when I have that conversation sometimes, I tell the parents in the village, you guys need to sit with the separatists and explain to them the need. And they tell me, oh, mommy, we cannot. It's so difficult. Life is so miserable. That is why we're sending our kids back out there. But excuse me, how many kids can I support? How many people want to support the kids? You have some kids who are even, some benefactors take them back to this. I know benefactors who have taken kids to Yaoundé, Douala, and they are sexually abusing the girls, even the boys. There's a boy who went on social media talking about he's an IDP and he is being sodomized by the man who took him in. It's not only women, it's also boys who are being abused. We need to, as I still say it and I keep on saying it and I will maintain it, there is a need for an inclusive dialogue. Let's look at each other in the face and decide the fate of what we want for our children. We should talk and be honest. We have to be honest. Say, this is where you wrong me. And I want you to apologize, or this is what I want. We need to come in and reach a mutual agreement. It's not always, you will never win. It's a win-win. Conflict, right. Nobody wins in conflict. It's always a win-win. And to get to that win-win, you put yourself in the other person's shoe. So there's nobody who's going to win. Arms have never won. In Liberia, they fought for so many years. They got tired. In Sierra Leone, they fought for so many years. They got tired. In Mali, they've been fighting. The Malian crisis started so long ago.
Right.
So many years. So this is the problem, you know. Nobody has ever won. It's on the dialogue table that we're going to win. So we have to sit on a table and talk about our differences and, you know, like make amends to our children who are in the far north and southwest and northwest region can have an education. If not, we are raising a generation of illiterate because they're not having informal or formal education. It's going to be a very difficult situation.
Nerebe Sonki Ewane, civil society leader, founder of the Network for Solidarity, Hope and Empowerment. Thank you so much for joining us from Mali today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila. It's always a pleasure to join you on your platform. And I wish you a happy day. And to all the children, African children across the continent, I can only wish you well. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Equinoxe is up next.